Hello and welcome back to Prompt Circle. In today's video, we are going to be taking a look at how to build and deploy Langchain applications to a hosted service. But in today's video, we're going to be looking at a service that has been created by Langchain themselves that is designed to simplify the process of deploying your Langchain application to a hosted service. And we're going to be looking at two options. One option centers around deploying your applications to Google Cloud, and the other option is using Langserve-hosted deployments. Now, this is a service that Langchain just recently released that makes it easy for you to simply deploy your applications to their own servers and they get to host it for you. Now, I think this is pretty cool because they have abstracted quite a number of the tough aspects of building backend services, making it very, very easy for you to quickly deploy them as needed. Now, the way they do this is that they're using the FastAPI framework. Now, what they've done is to make it possible for you to containerize your FastAPI application and have that deployed in the cloud. Now, what Langchain has also done is to create this Langchain CLI, which we're going to be using today to build out the application. So they essentially provide like a boilerplate code for you to get started, and all you really need to worry about is bringing your chains or your agents or whatever LLM application you're building on Langchain. So we're going to be looking at how to do this. So first, we're going to deploy Google Cloud Run, and we're going to be deploying also to Langserve hosted deployments. Now, if you go to your Langsmith application, I talked about Langsmith in the previous video, which is basically the one-stop suite for everything around your development cycle of a large language model, from obviously tracing, observability, monitoring, doing evaluations. All of that stuff is within this particular application. And if you go into this particular piece called Langserve deployments, this is where you actually have the ability to deploy your Langserve application through Langserve's own hosting tool. Now, this is not publicly available yet, so it is a private beta, but to get access, I think you need to reach out to the Langchain team, and then they can evaluate your request and make this available to you. But I'm going to be showing you how to do it, and I've had a lot of fun playing around with it so far. Okay, so some of the key things Langserve does. One, it obviously takes your Langchain application without much effort. It converts them into endpoints, so you can just basically add different routes and point them towards your chain or point them towards your agent or whatever Langchain application you're building. They generate Swagger documentation for you automatically, so you're going to see when we deploy the application, we're going to have a Swagger document, and they also provide a playground, which means that you can actually directly interact with your API through the playground, or you can make it available to other users to actually play around with it as well. And finally, of course, deploying it into the cloud. So we're just going to go ahead and quickly set this up. So I'm just going to go into my VS Code here. And like I said, we're going to be using Langchain CLI because it just really, really simplifies everything when you use that. So first and foremost, we're going to install Langchain CLI. So pip install Langchain CLI. Once we're done installing Langchain CLI, we need to also install Poetry, because Poetry is what we're going to be using for our dependency management. So Poetry. So we install Poetry. All right, and now once we're done installing Poetry, we're going to need a CLI access to GitHub, just because we're going to be pushing our code to GitHub. So basically what Langserve does is that they take whatever you've pushed to your GitHub repository, they connect to your GitHub repository and then deploy that to the cloud for you. So if you haven't installed GitHub's CLI, you can go ahead and use Brew on Mac. And also you can also install GitHub on Windows as well. So now that we have our CLI installed, the next thing we want to do here is that we want to create an app. So to create a Langchain app, you need to use the Langchain App New, and then I'm going to give it a name. So I'm going to call this Langserve underscore demo underscore app. All right. So now we're just going to go ahead and create the app. So as you see, it's just going to walk you through a very quick sort of guide, and the app is now created. So let's cd into this directory. So cd into Langserve demo app. And if we open this up, you would see like the folder structure here. So you have an app folder, which includes your server.py, which is where your Langchain application can go. Obviously, where you're declaring your FastAPI routes and things of that nature. We're going to come back to this very, very shortly. You also have a packages folder. You have a Docker file, which is important for deploying, for containerizing your application and then deploying them as well. We also have this PyProject.toml, which includes the different dependencies. Okay, so because we're going to be using Poetry, we need to install our OpenAI library, and to do that, we're going to use Poetry add OpenAI, and we're going to go ahead and do that, and this is going to install OpenAI for us. Now, one of the things that we need to also do if we want to test this locally would be to get our environment variables exported. So I'm going to export OpenAI. So export OpenAI underscore API underscore key equals to, so I'm going to pause the video right here and paste my key just to protect it. All right, so now I have my key exported to the environment variables. Okay, so as you can see, we initialized our FastAPI and we're setting that to app. The very first route here is a get route, and what this route simply does is just redirects you to the /docs path, which is where the Swagger documentation is. So whenever you run this application and you get to the root directory, it's going to just simply redirect you to the documentation. And you can see that they add a placeholder here for adding a new route. And as you can see, there's nothing in this route yet. I want to create a very simple function that just generates a story. So here, what we're going to do is that we're going to need to import a few things here. I want to import the chat OpenAI. So I'm going to say from Langchain, Langchain.chat underscore models. We're going to import the OpenAI chat model. So chat OpenAI. And next, we're going to import a chat prompt template as well. So from Langchain .prompts import chat prompt template. All right, so now what we're going to do here is that we're going to add a new route. So right here, we have a route that hasn't been implemented yet. So as you can see here, it says not implemented. So what we need to do is just go ahead and implement this route. So the very first thing we want to do here is we want to go ahead and set our prompt. So we want to set our prompt to chat prompt template dot from underscore template, and we're going to pass in our prompt. So tell me a story about, and we're going to just put topic as the input variable here. So that's basically what we're looking for. That's what our prompt is. And then we want to set our model, which is just simply equal to chat OpenAI, and that's it. So now right here, you see this route. We need to just remove this not implemented and implement a new route. So the very first thing we want to do here is to use the Langchain expression language to chain the prompt and the model together. So how do we do that? We put prompt, we use a pipe, and we do model. Next up, we want to set a path. So this is the path for our endpoint. If you leave it blank, it's just going to go to the root, the root endpoint. So here we're going to set our path to story. So slash story should be okay. So there goes our paths. So we have our app, we have a prompt and model, and then we have the path here. So basically, this is all we really need to do to set up a simple function that essentially generates stories based on topics that are provided. All right, so now I can go ahead and save this. All right, so now let's go ahead and run this. Now to run this particular piece, what we need here is going to be to first check and make sure that our dependencies are installed. So we do poetry install. This is just making sure dependencies are right. Then we want to do poetry run Langchain serve. So this is going to start our server. So our server is up and running. Seems like everything is looking good with our server, and you can see that we do have this. Now, this server is running on port 8000. All right, so let's check out our application. Is running on localhost 8000. So let's go to localhost 8000. And as you can see here, /docs takes us to our Swagger documentation. And here you can see our endpoint story and the various, our service story, I should say, and the various endpoints associated with them. So here you have sort of getting the input schema, getting the output schema, configuration schema, and then this is how you simply invoke the application. So we can try it out actually right from Swagger here. So we see our topic right here. So I'm just going to zoom this a little bit. So in our topic here, I'm going to just put large. So actually, I'm supposed to click on try it out first. And then I'm just going to say large language models. And once we execute this, we should get a response back from our API endpoint. Okay, so there you go. Our story has been generated, and this is what our output looks like. Now, like I mentioned earlier on, one of the cool things about Langserve as well is that in addition to providing you with the documentation, they also provide a playground. Now, to access the playground, you need to go to your route. So in this case, story and /playground. So playground, and then we can get access to the playground. So once again, if for instance we were going to add ask a question, and our topic was about, you know, customer relationship management software, as an example. I don't know why that topic came to mind, but anyways, here we go. So the topic is provided, and as you can see, streaming is available as well. Now, if you look at the documentation, you also notice that streaming is also available there as well. So here is basically our application. So it's working. The endpoint is acting as we want it to act. Now, the next thing we need to do now is get this deployed. And like I said, we're going to be doing this in 2 steps. First and foremost, we want to deploy this to Google Cloud. I do have my Google Cloud all set up. I'm going to put in the description, and I'm going to add like an article that provides a step-by-step guide on how you can set up your Google Cloud console to be able to support this. But we're just going to use a Google Cloud CLI to deploy this. So basically, we're going to be using Gcloud Run deploy, and that's how we're going to actually deploy this particular service. So if I go back um, to VS Code here, I'm just going to stop this server for a very short period of time. And all I'm going to do here is basically do a Gcloud Run deploy Langserve service. And the port in this case is 8080, and that's simply because in our Docker file, the port that is going to be exposed is the 8080 file. So that's what comes by default when you're using Langserve to set up your application. And I'm also providing, a region. I'm setting some environment variables for my OpenAI key, and I'm also setting Langchain API for tracing, as well as the Langchain project where I want to track this information. So when I do this, it's just simply going to go ahead and deploy this. All right, so our application is now deployed, and we can actually access the application logs right from here. So let's just open it up and see what it looks like. All right, so here you can see the app Langserve service is right here. And once I open that up, you would see our application is ready to go. So, all right, so let's test this out in Swagger just to make sure that our API is working. So once again, we can use the try it out here. And in our topic, we're just going to write image generation using AI, and we're just going to execute this, and this should return a response back. Okay, so there we go. Our response is coming back. So our Google application is up and running, running as expected, and we're getting our response back as we intended. Okay, so that is it for deploying to Google Cloud. But what if we wanted to use the Langserve hosted deployment, which is sort of a really simplified way of doing this. You don't need to set up any cloud infrastructure or anything like that. You just deploy directly. And I think this is really cool, because I think when you're building these types of applications, you want to get it out to your users as quickly as possible. This can make it very easy to do that. Now, I'm going to walk you through the steps. It's pretty straightforward to do. So first and foremost, the very first thing we need to do for our application to start working is we need to initialize Git. So let's go ahead and do a Git init to start with. Next up, we want to do a Git add, and we want to do an initial commit. So commit, let's say initial commit. All right, so now we've committed it. Now, the next thing we want to do is that we want to create a GitHub repo. Now, I'm just going to use the command line here. So gh repo create. I'm just creating a GitHub repo here. And I'm going to just basically push from an existing local repository. The path to the local repository is this. I'm just going to call this Langserve demo app. Yep, that's fine. And the description, simple Langserve application. And we want to make it public and add a remote. Yes. And we want to call the remote this. Would you like to push commits? Yes. So basically what's happening here is that our repo has been created in GitHub and it's been pushed as well over there. So if I go back into GitHub and go to my repository, we would see this newly created repo for this. So let's go ahead and look at it. So we called it Langserve demo app. So I'm going to open that up so we can see we have our application here. So now the next thing we need to do is to go into deployments. Now, like I said, to get access to this, you need to reach out to Langchain. They will give you access. It's still in private beta. I just recently got access over the weekend, and it's been exciting playing around with this. But if you want access, obviously you can just reach out to the team at Langchain and describe your use case, and they will be sure to get back to you on that. All right, so now to get to get quickly started with Langserve, by the way, in terms of documentation, you can go here. They have some documentation you can see here, which sort of goes through everything. I will add the link to that documentation in the description. So next, we just basically going to do a new deployment. Now, the very first thing you're going to do if you haven't already added Langserve to GitHub is that you would do sort of an add to GitHub, which basically connects your GitHub to Langserve. So I have already done mine, which is why I already have access to it. So this is an application in GitHub which will give you which would give Langserve access to your GitHub repositories. You can either give it access to all of your repositories or to a select few repositories. So once you're done with that, you want to check your GitHub repo for the application you're trying to deploy. In my case, is Langserve demo app, and that's going to bring in the repo URL right here. And I can give it a name. So I'm just going to call this Langserve demo app. And I'm going to leave the subdirectory at this and leave this to main. Now, the next thing you want to do is to add your environment variables here. So I'm going to go ahead and add my OpenAI API key, which is what we need. So OpenAI API key, I'm going to make it a secret. So we have our OpenAI API key saved, and we also have a project which is going to be created for us. So this project is where we're going to do our monitoring, our tracing, all of that. So that's one of the cool things about the tight integration between Langsmith and Langserve and Langchain. It's sort of an ecosystem bringing all of this together, and this is sort of what's really exciting about this is that you don't really need to leave the ecosystem when you're building Langchain. As you're building your application, one touch, you can go ahead and deploy. So now all I need to do is just hit the submit button, and that's it. My application is going to go through a build and finally is also going to get deployed as well. All right, so follow along. To follow along with the build, you can just click on this, and this is going to show you the build logs as they start. You're going to see the logs. So we're waiting for it to get started. You can just monitor and see sort of what's going on while we build. So we're just going to give it a few seconds. It takes about 3 to 5 minutes to build this out. So I'm just going to wait for a short period of time, and then we'll come back to it. All right, so we see our build logs are starting to build. So like I said, just going to take a few minutes, and once it's built, it's going to basically containerize and deploy. All right, so deployment is completed, and as you can see here, I think we have our application running as expected. So now we can go check it out. All right, so our application is ready to go. So now what we want to do is let's check out the playground. See if the playground is running up and running. So you see our endpoint is here. So as you can see, application has been deployed. And I'm going to just say git commits. All right. So we're going to generate a story on GitHub commits. Okay, there we go. So again, working as expected. And like I said, you can share this with your team or with other folks, because this is now a publicly available application. Is available on the internet. But I think the cool thing about this, which really is quite exciting, is the fact that you can see it working live. You can see how it's working. It's made available. You have documentation. It's really easy to get this application built, and as you can see, in a few lines of code and a few steps, we have our application running. I believe that Langchain is actually hosting this on Gcloud Runs as well. So basically just two different ways. So you either want to host it on their own version of Gcloud Run, or you want to host it on your own version of Gcloud Run, whatever makes most sense for you, whatever works for the project you're working on. But I think this is a really, really huge step in the right direction in terms of building these types of applications. I hope you're able to build and deploy very, very easily using these steps. If you like this type of content, consider dropping us a like and also subscribing to the channel. We do release videos at least once every week on different topics that are similar to the topics that you've seen today. Until next time, have a great one. Bye.